Well, the former Zimbabwean minister, Xavier Kusukukwere, let me get it right, has filed papers with the highest court in Zimbabwe as part of his continued fight to make it to the ballot next month. Last week, the Supreme Court in that country dismissed his appeal against the High Court judgment that nullified his candidature. His election team has written a letter to the SADC Troika organ on politics, defense and security, asking the regional organization to look at the political climate and electoral process ahead of the elections in that country. So to discuss this, we have the presidential candidate and former Zimbabwean minister, Xavier Kusukukwere, in studio with us to answer a couple of questions, and also a former minister, as we have mentioned, in the Robert Mugabe cabinet in the day. Good morning. Good to have you.
Thank you very much.
And welcome. So perhaps you want to give us the latest in what is going on, because you have lost a case at the High Court and Supreme Court with regard to contesting the elections. It's seeming like there's now going to be an election. Your face may not be there. What is the latest?
Well, there is still a process before that can be concluded. And this is what my team has done. The legal team, I've instructed them to take my matter up with the Constitutional Court of Zimbabwe. And they've already written. They've filed our papers yesterday, and we've also sought an urgent hearing by the Constitutional Court, because this really is at the heart of democracy. When you deny a citizen his rights to participate freely in the elections, which come, by the way, every 5 years, it then is a matter of grave concern, and this is why we've had to take this matter up.
Yeah. So the High Court judge, in barring you from the election, ruled that you had been out of Zimbabwe for 18 months or longer. And because of that, you were not living in the country. And that has been the reason given as to why you cannot contest in these presidential elections. That's what they're saying, that by law, you could not stand as a candidate. How are you going to fight that if that is the law?
No, first and foremostly, this pertains to an electoral law that defines the process of how one can be barred from contesting. One, it must be from your constituency. A member in your constituency, a voter in your registered constituency, shall take that matter up with the constituency register. And the process is then started, which will allow you also to be heard. You have a right to administrative justice to be heard. But in this case, the High Court judge, I think what I would call judicial overreach, decided to go beyond his own normal call of duty. Remember, the nomination court itself, ZAC, is headed by a High Court judge who is almost at the same level. In fact, they're at the same level with the High Court. So we would have expected that if there is any complaint, one, it has to go to the Electoral Court, which shall therefore carry out the processes as defined in our laws, not a situation where just one person decides to carry out a process, have an election without choices. This is what we're dealing with. So the High Court judge indeed had the judicial overreach. It's not his duty to do that.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you bring to the table. You served under the former president, which was then, of course, ousted as former President Robert Mugabe, in his cabinet, which you oversaw I suppose, the collapse of Zimbabwe, in a way. You were there, you were part of that cabinet. What can you come in now and offer Zimbabwe that's different to what you've already seen?
We've got to correct our mistakes.
And you can correct that?
Yeah, well, listen, you need somebody who has a better understanding of the lay of the land. We were there. Not that everything collapsed because of Mugabe. There are certain things that also happened well, but there are things that also went wrong. But our duty there for Zimbabweans is to correct and put right that which was not done correctly. And so I'm coming out with a very clear agenda. One, to reconcile the people of Zimbabwe, renew the leadership, revive our economy, reform our institutions. And these are some of the issues we're talking about the judicial overreach, as well as to rebuild Zimbabwe. I have a very clear agenda of what must be done, because I am a student of politics. I've been there. I've seen what should actually be done correctly. Now, you just can't come into politics without some level of experience to be able to correct things.
But I would imagine the people of Zimbabwe also want fresh blood. They want people that haven't been and overseeing the land that has honestly lost its citizens to neighboring countries that have fled to find a brighter future, that even many saying under the presidency of Mnangagwa has deteriorated even further than it was during the Mugabe years. And this has been something that's been ongoing. Why would they look to somebody like you, who was a part of this, to turn it around?
Well, Zimbabwe needs all hands on the deck. We've got to come together. We've got to unite our people. We've got to start accepting first and foremost that there were mistakes that happened in the past. Number two, having accepted that, you then can be able to come up with a plan, a manifesto, a political program that starts to restore the greatness of our country. The issues you're talking about, which is very close to the hearts of many Zimbabweans, is many of our people have left the country. They are now living beyond the borders of our country, and in some cases, very, very desperate situations. And there's of concern.
Yeah.
Remember, I've also spent 5 years or so traveling around the region, interacting with the people of my country, and seeing exactly what they're going through. And it is because of that.
How would you change it? If I may ask you, I mean, during your time when you were in charge of land, I mean, you sort of adopted and got land for yourself to become a very...
No, by the way, I was never Minister of Land.
Well, no, but when you were in the government, you managed to get that, and you're a successful businessman now.
No.
Now, what are you going to do that people are going to see you doing right?
I got into politics having already built my business. So I didn't come into politics to make money. If anything, I lost money in politics. Okay, I came into politics having built a business over years, but still, that's besides the point. The most important issue is that Zimbabwe is at crossroads. Zimbabwe needs rescue. Zimbabwe needs people, a leadership who has time to rebuild the country. We've got to deal with sleaze, corruption, hatred, tribalism. There are so many issues that are there that confront our people. And if we ignore that, as people who are in politics, by the way, there's no newcomer to politics. If you want to be a president at 40, you must have been in politics one or the other. And there is nobody today on that slate who has never been in politics, either as a minister. Whether it's my good friend Nelson Chamisa, he was a minister. Mnangagwa, he says, has been there for 50-something years. I'm 50 years old, so meaning that by the time I was born, Mnangagwa was already in. But that's the nature of politics. So you cannot exclude one because he was in there. If anything, it is those who know the lay of the land, who have been in, who can actually usher a new era. It's not about the new blood.
All right.
Fresh blood, yes.
Let's leave that, pause that for now, and focus on your issue at hand right now.
Thank you.
So you are going into the Constitutional Court. I mean, the elections are in a couple of days' time. What are your chances? I mean, this surely has in a way derailed your campaign.
The election must wait. We are going to fight. Yes. No. Already the timelines that are defined in terms of the law have been missed. First and foremostly, the ballots, which are supposed to be postal ballots, 40 days before, should have been dispatched to the relevant individuals who were required to participate in the voting. That has not been done. This is by operation of law. Now, why should I be excluded in this election? Why should Mnangagwa decide who the players must be? How can you have an election when you have gazetted? I was gazetted as one of the candidates. They must re-gazette the new set of candidates. You just don't plug me out and simply say, we've removed him. You end up with a situation where somebody will also come with a suit tomorrow and remove Nelson Chamisa, remove the other guy, remove the other guy. By the time of the elections, it's only Mnangagwa. That is what we're trying to stop. So we must ensure that the rule of law in our country works. Whether there are defects, whether individuals are bought in the process, we will not tire to expose those shenanigans, and until such a time that everybody plays their part. If you're a judicial officer, do your work correctly.
Yeah.
So ZEC must know, we're coming, we're not going to allow them to get away with it. Let's follow the law. All
right, so you've already approached the Constitutional Court?
Yes.
So the whole thing is in motion. When should you hear? When are you hoping that you'll get some kind of a
today
ruling?
We file again an urgent interdict against ZEC as well, that they are not going to proceed with the ballots until and unless this matter of grave concern, a constitutional matter, is disposed of, because the High Court Judge, Mangota, decided on the basis that this was a constitutional matter.
Okay.
So because of that, you have to ratify. In other words, the Constitutional Court must verify. In other words, there must be validity in terms of Section 175. So they must be able to say, yes, we think this is correct, so this portion of the law must be struck off. So Mangota can't make a decision, then it gets implemented first before the Constitutional Court comes in.
All right. Well, we'll keep watching that and see what happens with regard to your presidential ambitions and wanting to get on to the Zimbabwe presidential candidate and former Zimbabwean minister, Xavier Kasukuwere, who's talking to us about his election campaign and, of course, filing papers in Zimbabwe's highest court, waiting for that decision and, in fact, wanting to halt the elections altogether until this process is finalized.